with others, share ideas, and challenge each other's thinking. Our presentation will begin shortly, but first, some important reminders. We are recording this webinar. Following the webinar, you'll receive a link to the recording, and it will also be posted on our website. Due to the number of people online, all attendees are currently in listen-only mode. You can submit questions at any time using the chat feature in your control panel, which is, you can see it on the side. We will hold question and answer sessions following each presentation. At that time, we will unmute individual participants. To signal to us that you want to ask a question, click on the hand icon in your control panel. During this webinar, it's really important for us to be able to get your feedback. And so to do that, we will be conducting several polls throughout the webinar. And the polls will show up on your screens when we conduct them. There will be a question that will show up on your screen, and you'll be able to select your answer in that question box. This is our lovely team at CSSP. So again, my name is Lisa, and I am the one in the photograph with the big curly hair. And I am joined by my colleague, Alexa, whose photo is directly below mine. Here's what we hope to accomplish today. We want to hear and learn about the New Mexico Grads Program, which is a program that's designed to meet the educational needs of young parents as well as their children. We also want to hear from the lived experience of a student parent that graduated from the New Mexico Grads Program. The other thing that we want to accomplish today, which is really the highlight for us, is really have a facilitated peer discussion. Really have the opportunity where we can share ideas and solicit feedback on how we can create opportunities for educational supports for expectant and parenting youth and their children. And lastly, we want to share with you a new opportunity for professionals to be able to collaborate on developing policy recommendations or practice guides or other products that can help advance practice throughout the field. We're very excited about launching this work group, and we will share more information about this at the end of the webinar. So at this time, we want to test out the poll and make sure that everybody is able to do it correctly. And so our first poll, which should be showing up on your screens at the moment, is just to give us a sense of who's joining us. And so the question that you will see is, what is your role? And the answer options are practitioner, technical assistance provider, funder, researcher, and other. So I'm going to give folks some time to be able to complete the poll. All right, where 85% of the folks have completed the poll, so we'll just give another minute for the remaining. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the polls, and you should be able to see the results on your screen. And so it looks like the majority of us are other. So our other followed by 32% practitioners. So this should make for a really great and fruitful discussion later during the peer facilitated discussion. It'll be interesting to hear everyone's perspective and learn more about what their role is within the field in working with expectant and parenting youth. We are excited today to have two great presenters. Our first presenter is Marylouise Kuti, and she is the coordinator of the New Mexico Grads Plus program. And our second presenter is Sarita Chavez, a former student, parent, a graduate of the New Mexico Grads Program. So I want to say a welcome to all of the presenters. We want to take a few minutes before we move forward to share with you a brief overview of a theory of change that CSSP has developed for improving well-being outcomes for expectant and parenting youth and their children. I will go over it very quickly. However, more detailed information can be found on our website, www.cssp.org, and also by listening to our first webinar, which is archived on our website. Our theory of change is informed both by research and practice. It draws from and combines two initiatives as CSSP: Strengthening Families, which is focused on how parents can be supported to be successful, and You Thrive, which is focused on how adolescents can be supported to thrive and successfully transition into adulthood. Our theory of change is reflective of the need to support expectant and parenting youth, not just as adolescents, not just as parents, and not solely focused on their children, but holistically as a young family. Expected to be more inclusive of fathers and to underscore the importance of father engagement and involvement. Although we still have a lot to learn about young fathers' experiences and how to better serve them, we must acknowledge their important role in contributing to the health and well-being of their children. As you can see on the slide, the results that our theory of change hopes to achieve are thriving youth, that they have educational success, strong and stable connections, and are physically and mentally healthy. And that as they are thriving, they are better positioned to become nurturing parents, that they're able to create and maintain a nurturing environment where their children are safe, healthy, and ready to learn. In order to achieve these results, we think that all the approaches must be multi-generational, that they are developmentally informed, that they are trauma-informed, multi-systemic, youth-driven, results-based, and informed by evidence and practice. We apply a racial equity lens to all of our work. In addition to the elements of the approach, we believe that the strategies must create opportunities and reduce risk, that both are necessary. To help youth thrive, we think of creating opportunities for school-based supports, which we'll hear more about later today, financial literacy, and constructive community engagement, while at the same time implementing strategies that reduce risk, such as trauma screening, domestic violence support, and family planning services. To help youth become nurturing parents, we think of creating opportunities for home visiting, parent-child activities, and co-parenting supports, which we'll also hear a little bit about later on, while reducing risks by providing early remediation of developmental delays for their children. Our theory of change emphasizes the need for strategies that mutually create opportunities and reduce risk so that these young families can succeed and thrive. Our presentation today will take a deep dive into creating opportunities around educational supports for both expectant and parenting youth and early childhood development for their children. I will now turn it over to Marylouise Kuti, who is the coordinator of the New Mexico Grads Program. And I should say that the New Mexico Grads Program, the GRAD, stands for Graduation Reality Dual Role Skills Program. And she's going to share with us how the program came to be, some of the key components, and what they've learned so far from implementing this program.
Thank you, Alexis. And thank you all for participating. So as Alexis said, New Mexico GRAD stands for New Mexico Graduation Reality and Dual Role Skills Program. This program was adopted from the Ohio GRADS model and has been in existence for over 25 years here in New Mexico. We're in our 26th year. We provide enhanced in-class school environments to nurture and support expectant and parenting students and they receive a high school graduation credit for participating. And all students who are both in class and or case managed receive these services through the GRADS teacher, an on-site GRADS case manager, and or a fatherhood mentor. Our system is funded through a U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Next. Okay, our program history. So with our in-class support, students receive 4 credit towards high school graduation. We teach curriculum, which I'll speak about in just a little bit. Our case management is on-site at the school and off-site through home visiting, hospital visiting, and interagency collaboration. We have on- and off-site child care available for our students, which so some sites actually have a child development center at their school. And those who don't, we contract and provide monetary funding and support to contract with an off-site child care to ensure that there is priority given for grad students, children, to receive that child care. We have young father support and a grant that we've received, been able to enhance our father support to include fatherhood mentors to work with young fathers specifically. We also focus on early childhood and infant mental health. So our funding for New Mexico grads comes through legislative funding and through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Adolescent Health Pregnancy Assistance Fund grant. This is administered and overseen by the New Mexico Public Education Department. And over the years, we've had to explore and enhance our sustainability efforts. Funding for each state has been impacted, and in New Mexico, our funding through the New Mexico legislature has decreased significantly each year. And so we still have their continued support and are very grateful for that. And within our program, the funding that we receive from the state legislature and the Department of Health and Human Services, each grad site throughout the state is able to apply through mini grants for additional funding to support the areas of young father support, college and career readiness, enhanced case management, and early childhood and infant mental health. So through a multi-generational approach and model, we work to achieve the following results. We identify and remove barriers to success for expectant and parenting youth and their children. We overcome the cycle of poverty by achieving a high school education and gaining employability skills. And we develop positive parenting and healthy relationship skills. So oftentimes we include the parents of the young parents or guardians of the young parents, the partners of the young parents who are in the program, whose partners might not be in the program, their children, and through various activities in and out of school throughout the school year, we try to maintain a very student-centered and youth-centered approach to adapt to the needs that they have and programmatically be able to enhance what we're doing to meet those needs. We had last year for the 2014-15 school year, we had 27 sites in New Mexico. And as you can see on the map, they're all geographically different areas of our state. And this year we have 28 sites with another site hoping to join on at the spring semester, so right around January. Every school, high school in New Mexico, regardless if they have our program or not, receives communication from us through brochures and calendars. We do administrative presentations at conferences and are invited to speak at several sites who are contemplating asking us to come in and start a program in those sites. So there are 89 schools in New Mexico, high schools in New Mexico, and right now we are in 28 this school year. So our attendance policy, New Mexico is the first state in the nation to have worked collaboratively with several partners across the state to establish a policy that provides excused absence for pregnant and parenting students for the documented pregnancy and birth of a student's child. House Bill 300, which is what was introduced into legislation, requires that all school districts and charter schools establish these policies. It requires students to be granted time for makeup work, requiring distribution of policies to all secondary education students. A minimum of at least 10 days of excused absences for a student who provides documentation for the birth of a student child and provides excused absences for any additional days missed by a pregnant or parenting student for which a longer period of absence is deemed medically necessary by the student's physician. Additionally, this absence policy provides 4 days per semester of excused absences in addition to the number of allowed absences for all students. For students who provide documentation of that pregnancy, or if the student is a parent of a child under the age of 13 needing care. The pregnant and parenting student is responsible for commuting the student's pregnancy and parenting status to appropriate school personnel if they choose to disclose that information. And the school district or charter school shall provide a copy of the pregnant and parenting student absence policies to all students in middle and junior high school and the high schools in the state. The intersectional advocacy that we have for young students who are expectant in parenting in New Mexico, we work to ensure that students who are in transitional living situations or housing situations or homeless receive services through the McKinney-Vento Federal Homeless Assistance Act. So that states that all children and youth who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence are considered homeless. Each district in New Mexico has the ability to use their McKinney-Vento funds in the way that their unique district and community needs supports and allows for. Children, youth, and families and department and the Children's Services and Educational departments. So we work very closely with the Child Care Services Bureau that provides child care support and assistance through CYFD, which is our Children, Youth, and Families department. We also have support through Protective Services, which includes support for domestic violence survivors, and we focus specifically on teen dating violence in a partnership with the New Mexico Attorney General's Office as part of the grant that we've received with New Mexico Public Education Department and Health and Human Services Department. Additionally, we have a partnership with Pegasus Legal Services for Children, and this is a legal resource for children, youth, their caregivers, and the community concerning legal rights and needs of children and youth. So a guardian ad litem is given to students under a certain age, and then over that they have lawyer representation. And Pegasus Legal Services works with grad students on varieties of topics, and due to the rural and geographic separation of a lot of our communities in the state, we have different modes of access available. So we can use phones, we do media conferencing through iPads that our districts have for this purpose. Some of the barriers to accessing education that we see in New Mexico and that have been experienced a lot of places in the nation are transportation. Oftentimes, we can have the best support of programs in school and childcare available. However, transportation, which would get the student and their child to school, to childcare, is a huge barrier. So we're working within our state and our state collaborative partners to address these issues. Recruitment and retention into a program is also sometimes difficult when we look at addressing the needs of students who maybe are missing quite a bit of school or who have dropped out. We need to use different strategies to identify them and assist them in what works best for meeting their educational goals. We also seek support for undocumented students. We are a border community, or a border state to Mexico, and we also have a lot of transient residents in our state. And so we work, again, with the Attorney General's Office and Pegasus Legal Services for Children to provide support for undocumented students and their children. For co-parenting support in single-parenting families, that is a barrier to accessing education sometimes. If one or two of the parents are having relational issues, or if there's any sort of juvenile justice that is occurring, we want to ensure that those parents receive information on the rights and responsibilities that they have in the state. And then job placement assistance to ensure that students who are seeking employment are receiving that support through school, through career technical education support, and college and career readiness planning. So our key elements and strategies for the program is to identify a supportive school and community collaboration. So oftentimes in communities, especially rural communities, there are grassroots efforts that are occurring. So when considering having a grads program at the site, oftentimes we need a champion advocate. So it could be a teacher, it could be a school nurse, it could be a practitioner in the community who says, we have this need, we see this need, and we really want to make sure that we're working collaboratively to address the unique needs and barriers that these students are facing in school. And of course, we have our grads teachers, our case managers, and our fatherhood mentors who are out in the field working every day one-on-one with young mothers, young fathers, their families, and their children. Strategies that we use, we identify student participants through community and school referrals. So a student is always able to self-refer. And then we have referral documents that we share with community organizations. So if there are any sort of pregnancy help centers or Department of Health offices, and Christian's office, BGY. So those teachers in those communities will bring their cards, will bring grads informational brochures and calendars, and we also have referral release forms. So if a young person goes in and is pregnant or parenting and would like to receive our services, they consent to signing that document and we get that referral. So it helps us approach them and make sure that we give them that support. We provide a safe and supportive and positive environment, respectful of all students and their families. It's extremely important that the classroom and the school that these young people are coming to is non-stigmatizing, non-shaming, and recognizes and respects the unique needs that they have as young students and young parents. Key stakeholders that we have within the state and in the nation: the Office of Adolescent Health with the Health and Human Services Department. We work closely with New Mexico legislators to share information. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to all legislators in the state. It goes out through our social media, through Facebook and Twitter. And we attend legislative education committee meetings at our Capitol in Santa Fe and legislative finance committee meetings, and we share all of our data and information each year with key legislators and policymakers. We work closely with the Public Education Department, the New Mexico Attorney General's Office, Department of Health, Apex Education, who does our evaluations and data that we collect through the Grads Plus grant, Envision New Mexico, and the New Mexico Alliance for School-Based Health Centers, both who provide on-site technical assistance and QI for sites who have school-based health centers and grads programs to ensure that there is a fluidity in the communication and the referrals for the students who are attending schools, so they can have access to healthcare needs and sometimes the healthcare needs for their children if they're on site. Synergy New Mexico, Pegasus Legal Services for Children, CASA UNM, Jerome Romero is our fetal alcohol syndrome coordinator for the state, who travels to each of our sites and does youth leadership and training, and all of our students are peer educators on fetal alcohol syndrome, as well as many other students in the district that he visits. And we have the Young Fathers Program at Santa Fe, who are working with all of the grads fatherhood mentors to provide technical assistance and training in working with young fathers. Our system competencies were developed through the National Family and Consumer Science Standards, the New Mexico State Department of Education, and the Career Readiness Standards benchmarks, the U.S. Department of Labor, and the New Mexico State Department of Education Health Education benchmark content and standards. And our system competencies, so this is what we focus on through our curriculum and in-class instruction, as well as through case management. We have process skills, self-formation, pregnancy, wellness, and prenatal care, postpartum and neonatal care, parenting, enhancing child development, the creation of a healthy and safe environment, relationships and social support systems, economic independence, and employability. And all of these competencies, we have them designed to be taught over a 2-year period with students. So if we had a student who entered the program as a junior, and they could continue and meet all of the competencies, standards, and benchmarks by the end of their senior year. But obviously we know that students are coming at many ages and many stages of their education. So this is adaptable and oftentimes not taught in this order. Students are often surveyed and asked what their immediate needs are in a classroom setting at the beginning of their time in the class. And so for some students who come in, they really might need to have help accessing affordable housing or finding a job. And so, you know, that teacher would tailor the lessons to ensure that their economic independence and employability skills are taught to meet those immediate needs that they have. So for our high school credit instruction, every student who's in the program in school receives a credit towards high school graduation. This in-class instruction is led by New Mexico licensed secondary education teacher. So we have level 1, level 2, and level 3 licensing requirements, and they must be highly qualified educators. The 10 competencies that we had just spoken about are aligned to the performance standards and benchmarks within health science, health education, and family and consumer science. And so there's a lot of intersectional and cross-educational benchmarks that are being shared within different disciplines in a high school setting. Every high school grads program is required to have an advisory committee, and this advisory committee works to collaborate within other agencies in the community and share the needs and the services that students are accessing. They make decisions together as a community because we know that these schools are part of the community. And the advisory committee is required to meet twice annually, once in the fall semester and once in the spring semester. Oftentimes we have advisory committees that have a superintendent or a school administrator. We have practitioners with school nurses, school-based health center staff, child development center staff, students, parents, often legislators within that community will come to the meetings, and just a huge variety. And so for them to get together twice a year and then share through email listservs and the rest of the time is really important. focus on dropout recruitment strategies and implementation. So some of the strategies are hosting booths or tables at high school registration. A lot of times a student leadership activity is the high school students will present at middle schools on fetal alcohol syndrome or do teen paneling to share what their experiences are in a non-exploitive and non-tokenizing situation. It's very safe, and parents are given opt-out forms, and there's a lot of communication with parents in the community. We do, student-centered activities and events based on what they would like to do, where they're able to have their children with them. And so that, in collaboration with community agencies and shared referral systems, our recruitment strategies are very helpful. And then all of the districts in New Mexico are required to be compliant with Title IX, and GRADS districts, districts that have the GRADS program, are already in compliance with Title IX, which supports access to education for expecting and parenting youth. Our enhanced case management, so New Mexico GRADS has always had a case management component where students are receiving both in-school case management. It would be outside of their regularly scheduled class time for a GRADS class. It's through home visiting. We oftentimes have home visiting through our teachers and our case managers, but also with home visiting programs throughout the state. And so through this grant, through the Health and Human Services Department and the Office of Adolescent Health, we've been able to enhance that. We have a student-centered approach. There's both in-school and out-of-school case management. We have intake, assessments, and service plans. So each student receives their own specific service plan and assessment to identify immediate needs, to identify short-term needs, and identify some long-term needs. We have a school and community resource team, which is different from the advisory committee, but oftentimes those resource team members have more regular contact with the students, so they would be on-site staff. A continuum of service, again, the formalized referral process, coordination of services, so to refer out to other organizations as well as receive referrals from them, staff training and professional development, and of course continuous quality improvement of the model. And the documentation of case managed students and the services they receive is essential to the validity and fidelity of our program. We use student needs questionnaires, which helps identify the students and the child's needs in a variety of areas, including their basic needs, educational needs, college and career readiness or employment assistance, emotional, behavioral, and physical health needs, reproductive health needs, their child or children's needs, child safety, and legal needs. And because New Mexico is such a rural state with multicultural communities, Hispanic, military, transient, Native American populations, and undocumented students, we want to ensure that we remain culturally sensitive and linguistically appropriate when serving these needs. Another part of the GRADS Plus grant that we've been able to enhance for our sites is young father support. So young mothers and fathers have always been included in class and case management for New Mexico GRADS. And with this grant, we've been able to enhance that to provide very specific fatherhood support for these young fathers in the program, whether they are co-parent or whether they are in a relationship with a co-parent or whether they're single parenting. We have fatherhood mentors at most of our sites now who are hired to work specifically with young fathers. Sometimes they host groups and they use the 24/7 Dads curriculum, which they've all been trained in by 24/7 Dads. And these groups can look like lunchtime groups, after-school groups. They can be on campus or off campus. And they work really hard to make sure that fathers who are no longer enrolled in school or who have aged out are also included, because we know that young fathers are not always teenagers as well. We work with mothers and fathers together to support healthy relationship and co-parenting strategies through the 24/7 Dads curriculum. And the Young Fathers of Santa Fe program is really influential in sharing how the best practices on how to do that. And there's organization of events for fathers to engage with their children. In Las Cruces, New Mexico, we have 3 grads programs at 3 different high schools, and they collaborate with other agencies in the community for a Fathers Moving Forward program. And they host various holiday events and activities throughout the year that are specific for young fathers and their children to play together and engage together with community support. And oftentimes they are provided with mentorship through community members and food and safe spaces, transportation, and childcare, if sometimes those are learning opportunities where they can bring their children. So our child well-being components, through our early childhood and infant mental health, we really strive to ensure that not only are young parents being provided the support they need and the respect they need, but also their children. All of the child development centers, either on-site or off-site with New Mexico grads, are state licensed child development centers. So through the Children, Youth, and Families Department, which is like CPS, Child Protective Services for other states, do the state licensing reviews for each of those centers. The children of New Mexico grad students can access this either in school if their child care development center is on-site or off-site. We also have early childhood intervention screening that child development centers provide, and various tools like Ages to Stages, and sometimes Head Start programs are coming in and ensuring that any developmental, cognitive, behavioral interventions needed are identified and referred to ensure those children are receiving those services. Many of the on-site child development centers employ grad student parents, so those students are able to go into the centers during the school day. They're able to feed their children and change their children and ensure that the center is running through code that is set forth by CYFD. So those students are receiving credit also to be there, and we really encourage that. Some of our child development centers also support areas for breastfeeding for young mothers. So they have a safe space where they can breastfeed or pump milk and store milk. In addition to this, we have Circle of Security Parent Education. So at least one staff member at all of our 28 sites is a Circle of Security Parent Educator. They are licensed, and they work together. Sometimes it's offered during the school day as part of the grads class. Sometimes it's offered at the CDC Center or after school, and it's 1 to 2 times a week for 8 to 10 weeks that these young parents are receiving the Circle of Security Parent Education DVD training, and it's to identify how to form a secure bond with your child and a secure attachment. And so this is something that we have adopted in the state to use the Circle of Security. And in addition to that, all of the Children, Youth, and Families Department Foster and Integration Program in the state of New Mexico is also using the Circle of Security Parent Education DVD training for students or children who are fostering or in foster care in the state. Some additional components that we focus on through our grant and enhanced components are college and career readiness. So all of our students must have a next step plan. There's field trips to various colleges and universities and on-the-job training centers and facilities. We have FAFSA support for financial aid to attend college. Students are required, every student has a student notebook that they have to keep throughout their time in grads, and one section of that is career portfolios. And so every year our teachers are required to teach about resume writing, interview skills, dressing for success, identifying through career inventories and plans that maybe sometimes aren't actually administered by the grads teacher, but through the counseling department in the high school or guidance department, and to be able to explore different career pathways and college pathways that students are interested in, as well as legislative activities. Every year we have an annual legislative day in Santa Fe. This next year will be January 26th. And students come and they are able to, if they would like, speak in the rotunda and share personal stories or experiences and work with legislators to educate them on some of what their unique needs are. So we have many, many students and teachers that travel from across the state to be there. Additionally, students visit with each of their legislative representatives and bring informational brochures to their legislators, as well as sit and meet with them and share some experiences and some ideas on how they think they can better serve the needs. We have school-based health centers and community health partners that we work very closely with. Shared referral systems. The school-based health center oftentimes is where many students might receive a positive pregnancy test, and so to ensure that there is good communication between grad staff and school-based health center staff is really important. And through this grant, there's specific focus with our partners in the New Mexico Alliance of School-Based Health Centers and Envision New Mexico to ensure that school-based health centers and administrators and grad sites are able to work collaboratively together to serve those needs.
Thank you very much, Marylouise, for really giving us an in-depth overview of all of the program components. At this time, we are going to hear from a graduate of the New Mexico Grads Program, Sarita Chavez. She is 18 years old and a mother of an 11-month-old daughter. This past May, she graduated with her class from high school and is currently a full-time student at the University of Mexico. Welcome. Could you start by sharing with us how you became involved with the New Mexico Grads Program?
Yeah, I found out I was pregnant the summer before my senior year, and so when I first started, I went in, talked to a principal, and said what was going on, and they told us that they'd put me in the grads program. My mom had also gone through it, so she knew about it. I ended up meeting Ms. Dutchover, whom I also had child development. She taught child development when I was a sophomore. And then I had my grads representative, Amy. And when I started off, they introduced me into the program, and it's gone great.
Thank you. What were some of the bumps or challenges along the way of your educational path?
When I was, it was in November. It was just before Thanksgiving break, and I started to get contractions. So they told me I was possible preterm labor. So they told me I needed to be on bed rest, the doctors. And so I couldn't go to school right before Thanksgiving break. It was my last day of school until February, because my daughter was deciding she wanted to come early, and then once the due date came, she decided she wanted to wait. So she ended up coming on January 17th. And during that time, I needed to get my work and all of that. So without the grad program, I would have probably had to be going to school and getting my work and going in for tests and whatnot. But instead, Ms. Dutchover, she was bringing me my work, and she was supporting me during this time, giving me any help I needed. She would bring me my tests and supervise me while I was doing my testing, so I didn't have to leave the house, so I could stay relaxed and didn't have to worry about having a baby at school because that was a scary thought.
Yeah.
And then also, before I had to get on that leave, I had a lot of struggles in my mind with being pregnant because everyone looks at you a little bit differently and it makes you nervous at points. And I was able to talk to Amy, my representative, and she would get me through a lot of things if I was having problems at home, and she would talk to me and give me any support I needed. I was worried at a point about the preterm labor, and she was telling me stories and just reconnecting with me to help me better establish what was going on and be more comfortable with everything.
Thank you. So you mentioned a lot of great ways that the grads program helped you personally. In what ways has it helped your child? I know that she's 11 months, but just if there's anything that you've noticed, or if anything that you can share about her experience with the Child Development Center.
We actually didn't have the Child Development Center, but within the program, they allowed me to have time to talk to for breastfeeding for her, and also every day at lunch, my mother would bring my daughter in, and I would breastfeed her, and they would give me that time to feed her, and it helped reconnect with her. That way, I wasn't always apart from her, and she could be closer to me. And at one point, they brought me formula to give to her, and they've helped me be able to stay close to her and her to me.
That's great. And in what ways has the program enhanced your understanding of parenting and child development?
Well, as a first-time parent, I knew nothing. So they helped me become more comfortable with everything and see what was normal, what wasn't normal, so that I wasn't panicking every time something happened. And it helped me realize that I'm not alone in this, and made me feel like a part of something rather than just on my own. I'm the only pregnant person in the whole school or whatever, which wasn't true because that program helped introduce me to the other students who were going through the same thing.
Great. And then finally, what recommendations do you have for other professionals working with expectant and parenting youth around creating opportunities for educational success?
I would just say that offer as much support as you can and recommend anybody that can help. Look very deep into what their needs are. If it's financial, recommend them to anyone that can help them with that. I highly recommend this program, the grads program. It's helped tremendously.
Okay. Thank you very much for your perspective and for sharing your experience. At this point, I'm going to turn it back to Marylouise, who is going to talk to us about some of the outcomes that the program has been tracking, share some of the data, and what the lessons are that they've learned so far.
Thank you. So every student in the grads program completes an enrollment form for the X program. And we collect demographic information, we collect pregnancy and parenting information, educational information, In addition, we also have a student needs questionnaire that is administered through an electronic iPad app. And those needs track the immediate needs, the short-term needs, and the long-term needs for a student and or his or her child. And that app actually responds right away to the teacher what the immediate needs are. It's a color-coded system, and so then that teacher can immediately address those needs. So anything within 24 hours that needs to be addressed, whether it's adequate housing, food. And so what we track in various data collection tools that we use are graduation rates, repeat pregnancy rates, so students who are in the program who have a second or third pregnancy, public assistance that they receive, academic performance, their post-graduation plans, and then through child outcomes, we track their enrollment in early childhood education, so ECI services. So if there's any interventions that they're receiving through the Child Development Center or through referrals made by the Child Development Center, and then the low birth weight rates. In addition to that, we track other things that these are pretty macro level, but and that are impacting these outcomes. So their relationship status, languages spoken at home, access to services, public or child support information that they might have available to share. So for the 2014-15 school year of our programs, 25 of the 27 programs had case managers, and then 24 had fatherhood mentors as well. So there's at least 3 staff, including the grads teacher, at more than half of our sites to serve expectant and parenting needs. We have college and career readiness focus at 26 of the 27 sites last year, which includes partnership with Workforce Solutions, work keys assessments, collaboration with school counselors and guidance offices, and also includes career and educational assessments. And then early childhood and mental health. So specifically through child development centers, we have this in 24 of our sites, either on-site or off-site. The early childhood intervention that is received for a child, referrals that are made, circle of security parenting education classes. Some of our sites have also provided grandparent circle of security education classes because there is a unique dynamic to parenting your parenting teen in the same household. During the 2014-15 school year, we have been able to serve, serve 14 to 24 years old of students and various ages. We served a total of 467 female students and 107 male students for a total of 574 students. We will serve as young as we need to, and we document services up until age 24. So that is sometimes a little bit different each year. Various races, and so this is just some demographic information here of the services received by race in our state. Predominantly, we're receiving are giving services to students who identify as white Hispanic. And then during the 2014-15 school year, we had made 700 referrals were made to grad students related to their needs and or the needs of their children. So this is really important because those various data tools that we use, these are services that are received outside of the grads program. So a lot of their needs can be met by their case manager or fatherhood mentor or their teacher or their school social worker or McKinney-Vento representative for the district. But these outside needs, we had 700 referrals made, and those needs include basic needs, education, career, college, and employment, emotional, behavioral, social, and safety, physical health, reproductive health and family planning, child needs, legal assistance, fatherhood, and then another other category. And then for last year, our 2014 data, we had a 77% graduation rate for our 27 programs, and nationally it is 50%. Our low birth weight, babies were 3.3% of our babies were born low birth weight, and repeat pregnancy rate was 3.4%. So all of those are significantly lower compared to national rates and averages for those categories. And, this is really important because when we look at the deterrent to dropping out of high school or obtaining further education or a livable wage job, we know that a high school diploma will, or an equivalent, will make about 24% higher income for a young person who does not receive a high school diploma or an equivalent. And this is according to the TANF education and training. And through Kids Count data, we know that 20% of low birth weight babies require 20% more medical attention at a cost of $3,700 approximately per year for that child. So that we have a 3.3% low birth weight is also quite impacting economically. And then, yeah, sorry. So our program implementation considerations. So if anybody is interested in hearing more about what we do in New Mexico and what parts might be able to be adopted in your state or area, if not all of it, is just to identify who already in the community or in the school is your champion, who's already providing these services or some of these services that could be a key stakeholder or a local champion to identify the need and then advocate for the need, and then identifying a fiscal agent. So for example, our sites are run through school districts with the exception of one of our sites in Hobbs, New Mexico. It's in eastern New Mexico, and their fiscal agent is the Hobbs Boys and Girls Club. So that's all pretty flexible. We know that we have to remain a little bit flexible to community needs and response to this program. So we try to make it as adaptable as we can. And identify through data needs. So what is the local teen pregnancy and birth rates data? And what is the impact of teen pregnancy and birth rates on school dropout rates? What are the barriers to education? Some are quite specific in certain areas. And what are the barriers to childcare? Some of the lessons that we've learned, which is quite important, and we've learned this through our own experience working with young people, and I've also had experience myself. I was 15 when I became pregnant and 16 when I had my first child. And, we know that parenting at any age presents barriers, and these barriers do require support, and they require encouragement. One of the most important aspects of working with young people, regardless of parenting status or age, is being respectful of who they are and what their situations are, and free, specifically with young parents, free of stigma and blame and judgment and shaming behaviors and language. So, reframing sometimes maybe some of the posters we have up, or some of the language that we're printing in brochures, or some of the ways that we assume we know what the needs are or what's really going on. So just being really respectful, and that's something that we always go back to and refresh and relearn and re-educate ourselves. You know, working with their children and working with their families, it's really important to respect the cultural practices and beliefs and to not disrespect them. Sometimes that can be difficult and challenging when it comes to healthcare access, when it comes to maybe some remedies for things at home that, you know, we might have the education or experience to teach us that we don't want to do that, but then culturally we also don't want to disrespect what's going on in that student's home. And then we share experiences, you know, providing student leadership opportunities for them to share if they would like some of their experiences and continue education for adults and young people alike without making them a token teen parent and without exploiting what they go through and what their experiences are is really important. You know, the best education comes from experience, and, you know, having a safe environment where they can talk with each other or with their teacher or others if those opportunities present themselves, and, you know, allowing them to be a part of being the stakeholder in developing new policies and plans. So this is our contact information. We have our GRADS website. We also have a Facebook and Twitter account. And at any point, if anybody would like more information, we have our new brochures for this next school year coming in today. So we're going to be sending all of those out. But if anybody ever would like to connect with us or ask questions or would want to come visit and see a little bit of how we do that, we have also worked with Washington State, who now has GRADS in their state at a few sites, and they've come down here and we've worked together on how to implement the program up there, and we'll work best in different areas. So we encourage you to please connect with us and share what you're doing, because we would like to learn from you as well.
Thank you very much, Marylouise and Sarita, for a very insightful discussion on educational supports for expected and parenting youth and their children. I think what struck me the most about your approach is the multi-generational piece. You know, your work with all the caregivers, your work with the grandparents and pulling them in terms of with the circles of support, the work with some of the fathers that are involved. And then the other piece that struck me about the approach, which Sarita spoke to, is the importance of those social connections. She spoke about connections with the GRADS case manager and how that was important to her and how she's supported by that, as well as the peer supports, connections in meeting other expectant and parenting youth and feeling that she wasn't the only one. So again, thank you very much for a great presentation. At this time, we are going to open it up for questions. So you can feel free to either type in your question and we can read it out loud for you, or if you would like, click on the hand icon in the control panel and we can unmute you and you can ask your question directly. Okay, so we do have a question that I'm going to read out loud. What, if any, accommodations are made for students with special needs, whether they're cognitive delays or other physical disabilities?
So within New Mexico, we have IEPs and 504 plans that students are on. So, for example, if there's an educational or cognitive need education, then they would have an IEP, and so they would have IEP meetings. Their parent or guardian would be involved. And oftentimes, as a GRADS teacher, I was also involved in IEP meetings because of the case management component. Classroom interventions that are needed, alternative learning settings. So, you know, we understand it's not one size fits all for any student, including expectant and parenting teams. So in the case of medical need, if there's complications due to pregnancy-related issues, you know, sometimes a 504 plan would be included for that student to address any needs that are that have risen based on pregnancy.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. Do you offer incentives for students to participate in the program?
Not to participate in the program, no. So, and actually, we try to stay away from the word incentive. So students, we feel that it's extremely important to honor work and time outside of the classroom that a student participates in. So with anything that's tied to a service performed. So for example, if we have one of our young parents goes to our advisory meetings and is our facilitator of the meeting, then that would be a service performed, and so they could be paid for that. We recognize the validity of their work and time outside of school in the classroom, and recognize that they should be paid for that. We don't use incentives to coerce into a program. The program is completely voluntary, as is pregnancy or parenting status within school. We have to adhere to FERPA and HIPAA guidelines, and so we're really pretty strict about that.
Okay. And how do grad staff concerns regarding abuse or neglect by teen parents within the program? And
so for specific cases, any teacher in New Mexico is required by law to report to CYFD. So we have 1-800 numbers, and in New Mexico, it's the person who observes it, hears it, or is being told it that needs to report. So that's for any educator in New Mexico, regardless. We address healthy relationships more proactively than reactively. So in a general approach, we like to be quite proactive through Circle of Security parenting classes, through home visiting and partnerships with home visiting agencies. Mental health referrals are extremely important, so a connection within communities or in schools for infant, child, and adult mental health services is really, really critical, and we've worked really hard to ensure that that's happening. But for specific cases, if reports need to be made, we have connections with local protective environment centers for domestic violence and teen dating violence, or abuse and neglect with the parent themselves or with their child. And so a lot of times that's not handled directly by a teacher. It's involving oftentimes of a teacher, but it's referred out to the qualified and experienced people in the community.
Okay. And you mentioned recruitment strategies, and you talked a little bit about that. But can you share with us some strategies for retention on how to keep the youth actively engaged in the program?
Sure. So one of the things that has been helpful in my own personal experience when I was teaching in the classroom is, I would have my grad students during class, and then our school had an advisory hour, so it'd be assigned by freshman, sophomore, junior, senior class, and you'd get a group of students that you would have the whole 4 years that you would meet with every year, and you work on college and career readiness. And so I requested that the grad students that I had were also my advisory students. So there was another avenue to support them in a specific area. So when it comes to retention, that advisory teacher was also responsible for primary communication with staff and parents regarding their students' overall grades and experience, so within a school setting. So that was pretty helpful. I think it's really important to connect with faculty members in the building as that, oftentimes primary advocate for young parents in the school. It's really important that clear messaging, clear language is developed, and education is provided through professional development for staff, because I think a lot of social determinants are really making an impact on whether students are coming back to school or not. And so having a very homogeneous approach in an educational setting altogether, and then asking the students, it's pretty cool to teach right now because there's way fantastic outlets to share education or to experience education. And so, you know, I would learn every day from my kids what they would tell me. So I think to be open to an approach where you can also still learn something as well.
Okay. Thank you. There's a couple more questions that are coming in. We are running a bit out of time, and so we encourage you to email Marylouise to get answers to your questions. At this time, we want to move forward to our peer discussion portion of the webinar, and we're not going to be able to get through all 3 of the questions, but I think if we can tackle and talk about number 1, it would be great. And for this portion, if you can please raise your hand, as we really want to have a discussion, and we really want to hear from others that work in different jurisdictions or different states about what are they currently doing to support the multi-generational educational needs within their area or within their system or agency. To kind of get things started, I'm going to call on a representative from New York City Administration of Children's Services to talk about how they're supporting the educational needs of expectant and parenting youth. Brock Harris, are you on? Okay, so while we wait for Brock, we really want to hear from other folks about what it is that they do in their state. So I'm going to call on James Harris. Oh, that is Brock. Yeah, so unmute. Okay, Brock, you've been unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak about a partner that we have in New York City called the LIFE program. And LIFE, that's Living for Young Families Through Education. They provide free early childhood education and high-quality child care services to infants and toddlers with the New York City Department of Education. Anyone who's a student enrolled in school can benefit from this program. You have to be a young parent, and your child has to be between the ages of 8 weeks and 3 years old. They operate out of 37 sites here in New York City, and it's a great program that supports our expected and parenting youth and foster care in New York City.
Thank you, Frank. All right. Other folks, or if you have additional questions, or if you're thinking about implementing this program within your jurisdiction and have additional questions, or want to share ideas about additional considerations that we didn't talk about. We have a shy group. Oh, we have, okay. So Brenda, we're going to unmute you. Oh, Brenda, we're unable to unmute you because you didn't type in the audio pin. If you want to put it in the chat, I can read it out loud for you. I'm sorry about that. Are there folks out there from other states that are interested in implementing this program? Okay, Dorothy Edwards, we're going to unmute you at this time. Go ahead, Dorothy.
No question.
Yeah, go ahead, you're online. Dorothy, you may speak your question. You're currently unmuted.
No, there's no question.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. So we have such a shy group, but we want to continue this conversation. There will be other opportunities through the Learning Collective where we continue this conversation on how to create opportunities for educational supports for expectant and parenting youth. We want to now share with you something that we're very, very excited about. As you know, our Learning Collective, it's an interactive forum where professionals can exchange ideas and information and resources to really advance the practice and policies to improve well-being outcomes for these young families. And so the idea that we're very excited about is an opportunity to create a work group so that professionals can cross-nationally collaborate and produce a product for the field that supports and advances the work that is currently underway. We really want to get your feedback on what the priorities are, what you think the field needs at this time, because that will inform what the work group will take on. So we're going to do a poll right now to get your sense of what you think, which of these products that we have listed addresses gaps in the field. So you should be able to see the poll question on your screen, which asks which of the following products do you think addresses a gap in the field, and you may select more than one item. All right, hopefully everybody is able to view the poll. Again, it will be on your screen, and you may click a response on the screen, and you can select more than one item about what you think, which of these products you think addresses gaps in the field. And we'll give folks about a minute to complete the poll. All right, we have about 50% of folks have completed it. So we'll give about 30 more seconds, and then we'll close the poll. Okay, we're going to close the poll at this time, and you should be able to see the results on your screen. And it looks like our top 3 areas are that you've identified are practice guides for engaging fathers, foster parent and mentor recruitment marketing, and then there's a tie with recommendations for operationalizing sexual and reproductive health, as well as a toolkit to be able to meet the multi-generational developmental needs of expectant and parenting youth in foster care. This is really great feedback for us. We really want this work group, of course, to be to consist of people that work in the field, to really be informed by what's going on the ground, and to work together to develop something that is in response to that really addresses a gap or helps to advance the work moving forward. We are going to be launching this work group in the new year. More information will be coming to you in the new year, but we just wanted to give you a sense of what we were thinking. So what our expectations are for the members to share their expertise and their perspective. We would like to have the work group consist of about 8 to 10 members. And what we're thinking at this time, and we want to get your feedback on this, is that it will be a commitment of about a 2-hour meeting per month for about an 8-month period. We are currently exploring various online, virtual community online platforms that will give us the opportunity to be able to do video conferencing, to be able to collaborate on documents, to be able to have forums and chats so that there can be live, real-time peer exchange. And our thinking is that this work group will really help inform the development of this product, and that CSSP will conduct all of the synthesis and the writing of the final product with feedback from the work group members. At this time, we want to do another poll just to kind of get your sense of whether or not you can commit to a 2-hour conference call, whether that would, fit within your schedule. So we are going to launch that poll now, and you should see that on your screen. Okay. So the overwhelming response, which we expected, but wanted to make sure that we checked in, is about 73% of you said that no, and we understand that everybody is very, very busy, and that a 2-hour monthly commitment could be a lot of time, and so we're definitely going to take that feedback and see what we can do as we form this work group and what time commitments work best for everybody. The final poll of the webinar that we want to do is we really want to get a sense of your interest, whether or not you would be willing to participate in this work group, to work with others to develop a product. And so that poll should be showing up in your screen at the moment. Okay, so we're going to close the poll, and it's interesting. We're at 50-50. Actually, sorry, 53% of you are interested, which is great, in becoming a part of our work group. Like I said, we're going to be launching this in our virtual community in February of 2016, so please stay tuned for more detailed information about this that we will be sending out in the new year. Please visit our website where you can find an archive of our newsletters, our webinars, and a wealth of resources and information that we're continuously updating onto our site. We also really want to hear from you, and we want to keep the conversation going. You can do that by joining our collective as well as our private Facebook group. If you have any questions, ideas, or information that you would like to share with us and the collective, or ideas for future webinar topics, please email us at epyinfo@cssp.org. Following this webinar, you'll receive a brief evaluation survey, and we really appreciate your feedback on the webinar, as well as any additional topics that you would like us to take on. This will help us in planning for future webinars. I want to give a special thank you to all of our presenters, to CSSP, the Annie Casey Foundation, and